Hi guys, my name is Tito. I make videos on personal finance and investing. And in this video, I want to talk about my investment journey through the years. Now, I realize that I come here on YouTube every Wednesday and I tell you guys about investing and I tell you guys about one app or one investment or the other. And I thought it would be a good idea to let you guys know where I started in my investment journey when I started several years ago back in 2006. All right. Now, before we dive into the video, please do me a favor, you know the drill. Please like this video by clicking on the like button just underneath the video and subscribe to my channel if you're not subscribed already. I do videos on personal finance and investing, like I said, and you guys may not know, but YouTube really does appreciate it when you guys engage with a video. It lets YouTube know that the video is valuable and that you found value in it. So please like, share, subscribe, turn on the bell notifications, do all that good stuff. And yeah, you'll be making my day if you do. 2006, Olusegun Obasanjo was still the president of Nigeria. Bola Tinubu was the governor of Lagos State. Two-Face, D'banj, and P-Square were the hot artists on the Nigerian music charts. And Robin Thicke's Lost Without You had just come out, and I think that was my favorite song in 2006. I say all this to paint a picture for you guys, for you to cast your minds back to what the world was like back then when I made my very first investment. And how it happened was a close friend of mine, Tosa Omi, she told us at Youth Fellowship that a mentor kind of figure to her came to her church and told them, they had like a seminar on investing and personal finance, and she had extended an invitation to Tosa and her friends to come to her office to learn a bit more. So Tosa told us, and I was the only one who signed up. I was like, yeah, let's go for it, I'm down. And I followed Tosa to Stanbic IBTC's head office in Victoria Island, where we met with the one and only Nimi Akikube. A lot of you may know her now. She's one of the biggest names in personal finance and in finance generally in Nigeria. But back then, she was the head of private client services at Stanbic IBTC. And I was really shocked because I didn't think we'd be meeting with somebody so highly placed. I thought we'd just be meeting with somebody further down the totem pole. But yeah, I was shocked. I knew she was a bigwig then, but I didn't know as much about her back then as I do now. Anyway, she sat with us, told us a bit about investing, told us about mutual funds. I think back then, mutual funds had just become something that companies were pushing as a product for the general public to buy into. So she told us about it and gave us the forms, and we left with the forms. And I think a few days later, I came back to invest in my very first mutual fund, or my very first investment generally. It was an equity mutual fund, and I think the minimum requirement then was about 25,000 naira. Yeah, I think it was 25,000 naira, not 50,000 naira. And that was it. That was my very first investment. After that, my next investment was in 2007 during my service year in Kano. Yes, my service year was in Kano, and I served in a stockbroking firm. Surprise, surprise. I read economics in university, so all this stockbroking and personal finance stuff is just right up my alley. So that's how I ended up in a stockbroking firm in Kano. So back in 2007, there were lots of IPOs, lots of companies were coming to raise capital from the public, and I invested in Access Bank's IPO, NACO's IPO, and Dangote Sugar's IPO while I was in Kano. But a big mistake I made in 2007 was I had bought into these companies, I had invested, but I didn't think of my exit strategy. I didn't think of how I would manage or monitor my holdings and how I would liquidate them when the time came. And as a result, to this day, I really don't know the status of my investments in those companies that I bought through or invested in through the company I was serving at back in Kano in 2007. So yeah, that was a huge mistake I made. And now it's incumbent on me to try and figure out how to find out what the value of those investments are today, and just how I can access them, because to be honest, I don't know how to access them. So that was a lesson that I learned. 2008, I came back to Lagos and I served in I worked in another stockbroking firm on Lagos Island. Wasn't the best place to work at, if I'm being very honest. It was a bit of a torture chamber, but I learned a few things there. For example, something that we used to do in my department at the firm was, I was in the operations department, so we used to calculate what was called the daily position and the weekly position of our MD. What that was is all his holdings, all his assets, and his stocks, we would value them at the close of business of every day, so that he would know what his net worth was, what his assets were. And he was, the MD, the CEO of the organization. Basically, he was the head honcho, the person who owned the business. So what that meant, or what that did, was if he ever needed to raise money for anything, or needed a loan, or needed to collaborate, or merge with anyone, he knew what his value was at every single day. So he knew where his money was, and he knew what was easier to liquidate if he needed to liquidate anything, and what was harder to liquidate. And all his assets were divided on the spreadsheet. And that's something I learned, and something that I imbibed in my own money management life, essentially, even though working at that place wasn't the best. So that was 2008. I didn't invest in 2008. In fact, from 2008 till about the 5 years of between 2008 and 2012, I didn't do any investing. Within those 5 years, I had worked in 2 places, and I had started 2 businesses. After that stockbroking firm, I worked in an HR firm. And then after I left there, after a while, I started my photography business full time. And then I also started another business with some buddies of mine. Those 5 years were a bit hectic. For those of you who are business owners and small entrepreneurs, or small business owners or entrepreneurs rather, you'll know that, it's not a walk in the park, especially in the early years. So what happened was, I wasn't doing any investing because I felt I wasn't earning enough to invest. And that was a big mistake. I had a target of, okay, every month I want to invest, say, like 15,000 or 20,000. But after all my expenses, there was nothing left to save or to invest, which now meant I wasn't saving or investing for those years. And like I said, that was a mistake. I should have been saving and investing first, and then living off what was left off, or what was left rather. So those 5 years, I didn't do any investing. But in 2013, we got a bit of a breakthrough with the business that I had with my buddies. We did some marketing material and some videos for First Bank for their mobile money product, First Money. And some of those videos were showing in the banking hall, and some buddies would call me every now and then and say, they saw my video, or they saw me on the screen in First Bank. Essentially, we're teaching people online. I think those videos are still available on YouTube. You can check them out, how to use the First Money product. So that was a good project, brought us some money, and I got paid. And then as a result, I started investing again. At the end of 2013, I think in December, I invested in the money market mutual fund. And then in 2014, the middle of 2014, I invested in the guaranteed fund and the bond fund as well. So I invested in those mutual funds 2013 and 2014. 2015 to 2017 there was a life incident that happened around that period. It was another rough patch. So I found myself dipping into my investments, liquidating some of my investments, to pay some of my bills during that period, because I wasn't earning as much as I would have liked, and I had to dip into my investments and my savings to, make ends meet. So, and in that period, even though I wasn't investing, I was listening to a lot of personal finance and wealth management kind of radio shows and TV shows on CNBC, CNN, and Bloomberg. I was learning a lot about investing. At this stage, prior to 2018, the only investments I knew of that were accessible or within reach for me, I thought, were mutual funds and investing in the stock market, which is what I had been doing up until that time. But from the shows I'd been listening to, I learned there were other investments available, although there were the entry levels for those investments in terms of how much you would need to invest in things like bankers' acceptance and Eurobonds and whatnot was very high. We're talking in the millions. So those investments were out of my reach, but at least I had learned about them. I learned that they existed around 2017, 2018. So I started investing again, I think in 2018. In 2018, I started investing again. I did a dollar-euro bond with a company that advertised it was a good company, and the dollar-euro bond was within reach for me. Typically, like I said, euro bonds go into the millions and are very expensive, but this one was a dollar-euro bond and it was quite accessible. I had to gather money from several places just to take advantage of it. I didn't want to miss that opportunity, so I invested in that. And then I also invested in the federal government savings bond. I think the federal government just released the savings bond in 2017. So I took advantage of that. The interest rate on that isn't fantastic, but it's a great way to secure or to just make sure that your money is in a very safe place, because FGM bonds are known to be very safe investments. And that was fun, to see the returns come in, I think, quarterly, and then to not get your capital back after 2 years. Yeah, the FGM savings bonds are in either 2 or 3 years. So I did that in 2018 along with the Eurobonds. 2019 was another big year, not necessarily for me, but in the investing / personal finance space. Fractional shares investing became a thing, I think, in 2019. At least that's when I first heard of it. And that meant that you could now invest in companies abroad by buying a fraction of the shares. Prior to the advent of fractional shares investing, if you wanted to invest in, let's say, Alphabet, which is the parent company of Google, you'd need like $1,000 to buy 1 unit, to buy 1 share. But with fractional shares investing, with as little as $1, you could buy a fraction of a unit. So you could buy $10, $50, $100, any amount of money, as long as not less than $1 in equity of these big American companies. So yeah, that happened in 2019, and as a result, there are lots of apps and companies in Nigeria, as well as in other parts of the world, that would allow you from where you are to invest in the American stock exchange, as well as other stock exchanges of other countries. So with apps, I call it the rise of the apps, with apps like Bamboo, Chaka, Trove, Rise. I think Cowrywise predated these apps, but Cowrywise is in there, Wealth NG is in there as well. With these apps, you could now invest in foreign companies via the internet and your mobile phone, and you didn't need to buy at least 1 share. You could buy a fraction of a share, which essentially blew the market wide open and made it accessible to millions more people around the world. So that was big. That happened in 2019. I started investing this year in using that platform, or using fractional shares investing through Bamboo and Trove and Chaka. I started doing that in 2020. But what I also started doing in 2019, or at least the first one that I did, was the Agritech investing. I think my first investment was with Agro Partnerships, and that's another investment opportunity that is now very popular. Companies like Farm Crowdy, Thrive Agro Partnerships, they're now popular. I think Farm Crowdy was like the first big one. Maybe they started 2017, 2018. But from 2019, they became more popular, and they're even more popular now in 2020. So that's where I am now in terms of my investing. Those are the investments I've done through the years. Started with mutual funds, different kinds of mutual funds, did a Eurobond, done the FGN savings bond. I've never done a treasury bill yet. I will sometime soon. And then I did the crowdsourcing thing through the Agritech apps or platforms, and also buying shares in American companies through apps like Trove and Chaka and Bamboo. So that's been my investment journey. There have been lessons along the road. First of which was, I'm glad I started investing when I did in my 20s, and the way I've been investing has changed. The way I invest now in my 30s is different from how I invested in my 20s. I feel I'm more knowledgeable now, so I can take risks that I wouldn't have taken back like 10 years ago. Now that I have a bit of an understanding of how things work, I can take a few more risks. Also, because I started in my 20s, I'm thankful for that, because there have been rough patches over the past 14 years, and my investments have seen me through those rough patches. I've been able to liquidate some investments to pay off, either loans or to afford certain things, especially in those years where things were quite tough, or when I was between jobs. And I say all this for you guys to learn that there's no time like the present to start investing. Start where you are, start small, start safe. Mutual funds have different degrees of safety, but I think they tend to be some of the safer investments, them and things like FGN savings bonds or treasury bills. But if you're gonna start, I recommend you start with a mutual fund or two and see how that works for you over like 6 months to a year, and then maybe graduate to something else. Lots of people tell me that they want to start investing and they keep on saying they want to, and time can keep on going, and the next thing you know, if you're in your 30s now, you may get to your 40s and you find yourself wishing that you started investing back in your 30s. I mean, there are probably people that are in their 30s now who wish that they had started investing back in their 20s. And the sooner you start, the better. The sooner, essentially, that's a principle in investing, because your money or your investment will reap the rewards of compound interest and will grow more and more over time. The more time your money spends in an investment, the more it will grow exponentially, which is something that you should understand when it comes to investing, but it's something that you will understand with time. You can't get it all or grasp it all at once or at the beginning. I didn't. It took me learning and investing and reading and listening to radio programs on personal finance and investing before I learned that these things work with principles and that they're actionable and they're possible and they're not that difficult, because a lot of people tend to think that these things are difficult. So yeah, I hope you're able to get the message I'm passing across, that you should start where you are, start safe, start with what you have, and give it time. Give it time. Yeah. So that's been my investment journey since 2006 to date. If you guys enjoyed this video, please do me a favor and give it a thumbs up by clicking on the like button underneath the video. If you're not subscribed to my channel, please subscribe. I do videos on personal finance and investing. You should have a look around on my channel to see some of the different videos I've done on different kinds of investments. I really recommend it. And what else? Yeah, turn on notifications so that you're notified every time I drop a new video, because if you don't turn on notifications, YouTube won't notify you when I drop a new video. Thank you guys so much for watching. This has been interesting and different for me, and I will see you next time in my next video. Take care.